My 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Hurt, smelled like piss. And I am not making up that name. That, in fact, is just the act of an uncreative God. Like, whoever was the author of my story of life just phoned it in 6th grade and said, yeah, we'll call her Mrs. Hurt. Mrs. Hurt was an overweight ginger with a bold haircut. She wore 1970s thick-framed glasses. The year was 1996. And she exclusively and unapologetically wore polyester muumuus. So, that's what got you? So, my 6th grade year was destined to be awful from the get-go. That summer, I had turned 11, and no one showed up to my birthday party at King Arthur's Castle. Not one person. My dad left my family, and I got my period. So, it was going to be a great year. And Mrs. Hurt was determined to make sure my year was just as awful as I had expected it to be. On the first day of class, she says, Jennifer. And I said, actually, my name is Jenny. And she said, no, actually, your name is Jennifer. And I said, no, I mean, really, my name is Jenny. And she said, no, really, your name is Jennifer because no one is named Jenny. I was like, no, I mean, I'm really named Jenny. I don't know, what can I do here? My mom actually submitted a copy of my birth certificate to this woman because she refused to stop calling me Jennifer. And even after seeing my birth certificate, still call me Jennifer. She said, Jennifer. I said, no, that's not my name. And she said, well, when I'm angry at people, I like to call them by their real name. Did I mention she smelled like piss? I obviously was not a popular kid. Like I said, no one came to my birthday party. No one liked me. And I was really surprised one day when this white-haired boy named Tommy said, will you be my girlfriend?
No.
I enthusiastically was like, oh my God, yes. And so that night he called me on the phone and we talked about TV shows. And he talked about Beavis and Butthead and The Simpsons, which I wasn't into. So I told him about Mr. Wizard and Zoom on PBS. And Zoom. And I just had this feeling, you know how you can like press mute on your phone? I don't know if you ever played this game where you pretend you have another call, and so you press mute, and you just stay on the line. Oh, I decided to do that. And when I did, I heard 2 other voices, and it was Caleb and Brian. And Caleb said, this is hysterical, man. I can't believe she actually thinks that you're her boyfriend. And then Tommy said, I know, right? She thinks someone could actually like her. So later that year, Tommy and Kayla and Brian were making fun of me, as they always did. And I went up to Mrs. Hurt and I said, Mrs. Hurt, just please help me. They're making fun of me really bad, and I want it to stop. And so Mrs. Hurt looked at me and she said, well, when someone's making fun of you, the best thing you can do is to turn around, look them in the eye, and say, I love you. Oh, what?
Okay.
Oh my God! So, I went up to Caleb and Brian and Tommy, and I looked at them and I said, I love you. And they went, ew! And they pointed and they laughed, and I started crying, and I looked at Mrs. Hurt, and she's just sitting behind her desk in her poly moo-moo. Oh. Smirking. She knew what she had done. The list of the attacks on me that year from my teacher was long. There was the time that a girl got bit by a snake and she blamed it on me. Mrs. Hurt blamed it on me and I got in trouble. There was the time that the school bully, whose name was actually Jennifer, beat the shit out of me in a crowd full of people. I was surrounded, and I looked up, holding my stomach, and there was Mrs. Hurt, cheering her on. I said, please help. She said, sorry, there's nothing I can do. But her worst offense was on the last day of school. We had a school newspaper that came out weekly, and none of the kids ever read it. I did. front to back, because I loved reading. I couldn't get enough. But no one else did, and I noticed on the last day of school that everyone was reading the paper, and I thought, well, this is peculiar. So I opened it up, and I noticed that Mrs. Hurd has written a personal letter to everyone in the class. Just like 1 or 2 sentences to each student. And because I have an obsession with order, I started with the first name. My name is always the last on the list because my maiden name is Wright, with a W. But I started with Allison. Allison, you are the light in this world, the most compassionate and sweet girl ever. Jeffrey, you're the smartest boy there is, and I can't wait to see what you blossom into. Kevin, you are so funny. You crack everyone up. What a light. Jenny, it's been a rough year, and you've taught me one thing. Being yourself is not always the best option. I was utterly devastated, as you can imagine. And at that point, I kind of lost every bit of childhood I had inside of me, where I was this nerdy, weird kid who, yes, talked a lot and who, yes, did not understand social norms and hierarchy and who didn't know when to stop talking or when to start talking, what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate, and who really was obsessed with the moon and could tell you absolutely everything about it. Yes, I was that kid. And yes, it was annoying, and I believed at that moment that I did not deserve to be loved as who I was, and I became ashamed. And the next year, by the time I was 12 years old, I was utterly suicidal. And from the time I was 12 to just recently, a few years ago, I was constantly suicidal, in and out of psychiatric wards, and utterly depressed and anxious because I truly believed that I could not be loved for who I was. But a few years ago, I had a near-death experience. And I realized I have one life, and damn it, I am going to be Jenny. On the spectrum or not, autistic or not, it doesn't matter. I am exactly who I am, and I deserve to be loved. So Mrs. Hurt, fuck you.